with Biden the certain winner in the presidential race against the racist, homophobe.
A racist, homophobe. Okay, so we've got, I don't know, homophobe. Let's just call it racist and homophobic. Two things so far.
Donald Trump. How we got to a situation where a narcissistic right-winger.
Guys, it seems that Ronaldo House has just decided to explode the YouTube space in South Africa with this video he just found of the new South African envoy to the USA, Mcebisi Jonas, seemingly repeating the same thoughts and ideas that escalated into making Ibrahim Rasool a persona non grata. So I'm really confused now with what actually was a happy moment for me as at last night. So last night, the media went agog in SA that, President Ramaphosa has just appointed a new US envoy, not an ambassador. I remember I even had to go back to do my homework to try to find out the difference between an ambassador and an envoy, because I was really intrigued. I saw a commentary about an analyst, probably I'll be making a video on that soon, who described Donald Trump as having a preference for envoys than ambassadors because of his perspective to, negotiations and all of that. And it seems that envoys actually have this kind of like particularistic, approach to certain issues in their relationship with other countries. So Jonas Mcebisi was probably the most appropriate candidate to hopefully replace Ibrahim Rasool on the long run, but to begin the job to start mending South Africa's relationship with the US as a envoy of South Africa, as a South African envoy to the US, all right? I now woke up to this news by the Africa Report. I love reading their news so much because it's kind of like one of the places I get a lot of Pan-African news. And it says that South Africa sends Mcebisi Jonas to the US as envoy, semicolon, racist, homophobic Trump comments resurface. Now, I really don't know if probably this is Ronaldo House, writing this statement. But anyway, this issue was written by one Karian Plessis in Pretoria. And it was posted just yesterday. I think this is just, at the moment, probably some hours or maybe a few hours after this announcement was made that Mcebisi Jonas would be replacing or probably acting, as a US envoy for South Africa to the US. And this is the most unfortunate news. In the words of Neil de Beer, he keeps saying that ANC keeps scoring own goals after own goals. And I really don't know what kind of own goal this particular event, could actually be bigger than. This is, I think, the largest own goal I think I've witnessed or seen or observed in probably ANC's recent history. Because we are just dealing and trying to heal from an event that actually featured former Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool on the same issues that caused him to be, slammed with a persona non grata status, only for us to have a new replacement, likely replacement for him, to now be slammed again with almost similar statements that made Ibrahim Rasool a persona non grata. So we'll be going through the news, and I think the Africa Report is really brilliant with this report. This article, I think, was really brilliant. It gives us some historical context into how this whole speech came to surface by former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas. I think he was a Deputy Finance Minister under Jacob Zuma, and how this whole problem, this speech he gave came to be, just in the same way the speech that Ibrahim Rasool gave in a webinar online. That's the same way Mcebisi Jonas, video has sort of surfaced in the most unfortunate, circumstance. So Before we go into that news, I just want you guys to watch Renato Gauss made a really interesting analysis of this whole thing. I think he even went the extra mile of digging out the video where Mcebisi Jonas was featured as making these speeches, where I think he called Donald Trump, I think, this article says he refers to Donald Trump as racist and homophobic. I really don't know how Marco Rubio, we might be expecting the next tweet from Marco Rubio on X. Maybe, I don't know if probably this might lead to another persona non grata moment. I'm really hoping not. But anyway, Renato Gauss makes a really interesting analysis of this whole speech. Let's watch this quickly and I'll be back.
Now, he is appointed to fix the relationship that we currently have with the Trump administration in the United States. Right now, he is the one that needs to fix it. Now, I've got a question. How is he going to fix that when he has said the following?
Right now, the US is undergoing a watershed moment, with Biden the certain winner in the presidential race against the racist, homophobe Donald Trump. How we got to a situation where a narcissistic right-winger took charge of the world's greatest economic and military powerhouse is something that we need to ponder over. It is something that all democracies need to ponder over.
Okay, I think we need to play this again, because this individual is going to go and fix the broken relationship between the Trump administration and South Africa. But wait, what do you have to say about Trump?
Right now, the US is undergoing a watershed moment.
By the way, this was in 2020. He was doing this at the 11th Ahmed Kathrada Foundational Annual Lecture. So this was in 2020 during COVID, as you can see with the day 226 level 1 South Africa lockdown. So he said this 5 years ago. So, I mean, this is how he feels about Donald Trump, right?
With Biden the certain winner in the presidential race against the racist, homophobe.
A racist, homophobe. Okay, so we've got, homophobe. Let's just call it racist and homophobic. Two things so far.
Donald Trump. How we got to a situation where a narcissistic right-winger.
Narcissistic right-winger. So those are four things that he's accused Donald Trump of now. Racist, homophobic, narcissistic, right-winger. Four things.
Took charge of the world's greatest economic and military powerhouse is something that we need to ponder over. It is something that all democracies need to ponder over.
Okay, so Mcebisi Jonas is going to go and speak with the Trump administration, fixing the relationship with the United States after he called him a racist, homophobic, narcissistic right-winger. And how could the world ever elect somebody like that as the president of the United States? And he said this in 2020. So this is who Cyril Ramaphosa decided to send to go and fight on the behalf of South Africans. Why?
Yeah, so you see for yourself, guys, Renato Gauss, I think getting into his humorous moments there. But we'll quickly dive in through to think about these issues from the report, from the Africa Report article here by, this is Karian Duplexis in Pretoria. It says, businessman and former politician Mcebisi Jonas, instrumental in fighting Zuma-era corruption, has been appointed South Africa's special envoy to the US. Will his previous comments about Donald Trump come back to haunt him? The article then goes on to say that South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has tasked one of his investment envoys, Mcebisi Jonas, as the man responsible for advancing the country's diplomatic, trade, and bilateral priorities in the US. In a statement, Ramaphosa's office said Jonas will lead negotiations, foster strategic partnerships, and engage with U.S. government officials and private sector leaders to promote our national interests. All right. Now, there's a subheading that goes on to say need for a relations reset. Jonas was appointed after the U.S. expelled the South African ambassador, former ambassador Ebrahim Rasool, for making statements that the U.S. administration considered critical and beyond the bounds of diplomatic protocol. Rasool had held the position for only 2 months. A source with close knowledge of the situation told the Africa Report that an ambassador cannot be appointed at this time because things are too heated. So this is why I explained earlier that, an envoy actually seems to be like a better replacement than an ambassador at the moment, because things have gotten really, degenerated in the relationship between South Africa and the US. All right. So it says that, first of all, before an ambassador will get there, relations need to be re-established first. Additionally, the process of appointing an ambassador will take several months, including the time required to arrive in the US and be formally accredited. Now, it says Jonas was not President Ramaphosa's first choice, according to the Africa Report here. It says that the Africa Report understands that another high-ranking CEO declined the position, citing disagreement with South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. So in other words, I think there was a CEO who was approached to take up this, job or this role, but that CEO really didn't feel confident or comfortable because of South Africa's ICJ case with Israel at the moment. So that's really standing in the way for probably this CEO who might have been the perfect envoy for these times. But because of the case with Israel at the ICJ, South Africa's case against Israel at the ICJ, this CEO declined. So it says that the ICJ case remains one of the key points of tension in South Africa's relations with President Donald Trump's administration, which is a staunch ally of Israel. Now, what are the political ties, that Mcebisi Jonas has? It says that an independent non-executive chairman of South Africa's mobile giant MTN, which also operates in Iran, Jonas has been a presidential investment envoy since 2018. So the whole problem with Iran comes again here. It says that Jonas previously served as deputy minister under former President Jacob Zuma's administration and helped blow the whistle against the large-scale corruption or state capture under Zuma's watch. Now, Zuma decided to sack him in 2017, after which Jonas went into business. The 67-year-old hails from the Eastern Cape province, where he started his political career as an anti-apartheid activist in the United Democratic Front, which represented the banned African National Congress. Now, Ramaphosa's office said, I think this was from Vincent Makwenya, or probably anyway, the spokesperson for the Ramaphosa's office. This quote reads, it says, "This appointment underscores his distinguished career and continued commitment to advancing South Africa's national and economic interests." So this is the perspective from the President Ramaphosa's office, that Mcebisi Jonas, undertaking this appointment underscores his distinguished career and continued commitment to advancing South Africa's national and economic interests. All right. So the article then goes on to say that Jonas's appointment comes days after Trump repeated false claims on his social media platform Truth Social that the South African government is confiscating land and there is a genocide against white people. He asked whether, under such circumstances, it will be possible for him to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in November. Jonas, now in a statement, said that he is fully aware of the difficulties that lie ahead of him, but there are areas of commonality and mutual interest that could help to reaffirm long-standing ties between the two countries. He urged South Africans, now Jonas now is urging South Africans to be patient and asked for space to pursue this task. There are no quick fixes in such a situation, such a complex situation, Jonas said. Now, South Africa currently holds the G20 presidency and is expected to hand it over to the United States at the end of the year. Although U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio declined to attend the G20 meeting in Johannesburg earlier this year, meetings between officials have continued in preparation for the transition. Questions have been raised about whether the U.S. remains a suitable candidate for the G20 presidency under the current administration. Then the final section of the article says, dead on arrival. In other words, it appears that this appointment of Jonas Msebisi to represent South Africa as an envoy to the US seems to be dead on arrival. Why is that? It says Msebisi Jonas gave the annual Ahmed Kathrada lecture in November 2020, in which he described Donald Trump as a racist, homophobic right-winger. Whether this will prompt the Trump administration to declare Jonas as a persona non grata like Rasul is now a live issue. Nell Murray, managing director of risk management company Thabiti, says even though Jonas is well regarded for his intellectual and analytical capacity, and even though he's clearly part of Ramaphosa's camp, his appointment still amounts to cadre deployment, as he has served his whole life in the ANC. Somebody a bit more politically neutral might have been a better option, says Nell Murray. Now, the question remains how Trump will react to Jonas's past criticism. A minority in the Washington, D.C. think tank might ignore these remarks, but it has poisoned the atmosphere, and he might find it more difficult to do his job as an envoy. It might even worsen the already strained relations with the US. A brilliant article, and I really do not have much to say. But I just think it's quite a lesson for all of us, even those of us who might have channels here trying to help people understand what's going on. That, you know, the media doesn't forget. It's a slur. It's a kind of like a mantra I've always learned. The media doesn't forget. And this is quite unfortunate to be happening at this time. I don't know if probably Donald Trump might consider the fact that Msebisi Jonas made this allegation or this speech while, you know, he was still, away from appointment as a South African representative to the US. Because if you compare that to Ibrahim Rasool's case was the fact that he was a sitting ambassador making such statements as an ambassador. All right. So in other words, it was much more potent in its derogatory analysis, so to speak, on the level of its derogatory analysis. But here we see Msebisi Jonas making this statement as far back as 2020 November in a lecture. It's an annual Ahmed Kathrada lecture. And he called Donald Trump racist, homophobic, right-winger. I really hope maybe Donald Trump might ignore that because of the fact that this was done in 2020, 5 years ago. Or maybe Marco Rubio might just, shock us tomorrow or next tomorrow, or maybe this week or next week with a tweet saying that, I don't know if maybe there might be another persona non grata status cooking in the United States. It's tiring, man. Now the bear says own goal after own goal. I think I'm beginning to understand. But anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think about this? I have no other thoughts. Share your thoughts in the comments.